Hi guys, how are we doing? You're back with me, Angelo, on Terribly Racing. We're looking today at a setup, a full racing sim setup, professional grade setup for less than £3,000. Now, you might hear that and go, £3,000? Wow, what do you mean for less than £3,000? But for a professional grade, and I do believe everything I'm going to show you in this video is at a professional level, you cannot get cheaper than what I've done here. So I'm going to walk you through everything that I've gone for, why I've gone for it, and why I've made any compromises the way I have to keep down to this budget of under £3,000. Now, to begin with, the most important thing for me is the wheelbase. I've tried a few different wheelbases. I started off with Logitech, as most people do, moved up to the Moser R9, which was fantastic, a direct drive base, then to the Moser R16, because I was familiar with Moser, I liked the ecosystem, I had their wheels, and 16 Newton meters was almost enough torque for me. However, I wanted that a little bit more. I wanted to, in some of the faster cars, I wanted to really have to fight the car like you would in real life, and also the extra fidelity for the Simmucube. I ended up going for the Simucube 2 Pro for that extra fidelity in the feedback. So you really feel every little grain, every tiny little notch, curb to a higher level of detail that you did on the Moser. Not to say the Moser R1, R16 was bad. This is the V1 is what I was trying to stipulate there, sorry. The V1 was a great base, but I do think the V2 is probably better. And maybe gives more of that level of detail that I get from the Simucube. But I went for the Simucube 2 Pro, and for me, nothing beats it on the market. It is hands down the best quality item in the whole rig. It is built like an absolute tank. I've managed to pick mine up used on Facebook for £720. Never had any problems with it, no overheating. The thing barely even gets warm. It always feels fantastic. So yeah, £720, managed to find it on Facebook from a friend of mine. Obviously you don't have to buy from a friend, it just turned out that I already knew the person that was selling it, so I could trust them. But always do your checks when you're buying online. Make sure you know who you're buying from, or you at least know where they live, in case anything does go wrong and maybe they try to cheat you out of something, which doesn't normally happen, but it does happen sometimes. People have been scammed on websites like Facebook, so just be careful. Now, moving on from the wheelbase, I moved off the Moser ecosystem, off the Moser wheels, onto the Simagic GT NEO. Now, the GT NEO is a fantastic wheel, costs about £300 with the MagLink cable. Now, the MagLink cable, for all of you that don't know, allows you to connect the wheel to a non-Simagic base, and also allows you access to something like SimHub. And I absolutely love SimHub. I can get onto that in a separate video. There's so many things you can do with SimHub, but for the wheel, I can have like a spotter on the wheel. I can have lights flash up when people come up on the right or on the left. Flags display on the wheel as and when they happen in real time in game. I have every rev light from whatever car that I'm driving mapped onto these rev lights on the wheel. So everything here feels super high quality. The only thing that this wheel is maybe missing is real carbon fiber. But when you're driving, when you're racing, as long as the wheel feels completely rigid to you, it's just a looks thing. So I've managed to save myself maybe £300-400 going for Simagic GT NEO as opposed to one of the other wheels that maybe Cube Controls or Asher Racing would have released. From there, I went with pedals, also from Simagic, because I knew how amazing the GT NEO was, and Simagic are a great brand. They're quite similar to Moser, but they feel just a little bit more race-inspired. They feel more in touch with the racing community. They do everything to maybe a slightly higher quality, and they're more in tune with racers as a whole, is my opinion. So between the Moser CRP, the Simagic pedals, there's obviously a bunch of different ones. You get Hoosing bells, but these Simagic pedals, they were £500 or $450 because I've got the Formula version, so that's just accelerator and brake, no clutch. I'm not a fan of the clutch, I don't need it. I have the clutches on my wheel, I have the dual clutches on the wheel, so the clutches are redundant for me. Now, one of the main reasons I went for the Simagic pedals is because they have the native support for the haptic reactors, which I knew I was very interested in before I bought them, and also they're super high quality. You pull them out of the box and you think, wow, these could go straight in a race car. They do not feel like a toy whatsoever. Now, for £500, you'd hope for that, but like I said, this is no compromises. I've seen Hoosing belts, they're not to my taste, and everything in here feels fantastic. Accelerator and brake, no complaints. Load cells are load cells. Obviously, people package them differently, but for £500, I wouldn't change a thing. Now, we've discussed the wheelbase, the wheel and the pedals. What's it all mounted to? So what you can see me in here, this is a Logitech Playseat Trophy. Now, when you say Playseat, some people might think it's a bit of a toy. It's not professional grade. It's going to be a bit wobbly, a bit shaky. You're not going to have the true force feedback. I can tell you now, I use 80% of 25 Newton meters. I used to use more. I've come down a little bit now for certain cars. And maybe this isn't 100% of what an 80/20 aluminium profile rig is. Maybe it's not the exact same stiffness or rigidity. But for the extra level of immersion you feel from having no uprights, no weird profiles, you feel like you're in a race car seat here. All you can really see is the screen that I have, the wheel, and then everything kind of disappears. There is no big upright profile holding it all together. It's really seamless. It's super, super solid. So pedal deck wise, I don't have any flex or any issues with that. Nor do I have any issues with the force feedback. One thing I can say, up and down motion, there's maybe 2 or 3 mil play up and down. Now part of that is because I have an extension on the Simucube base to help get this for the right position for me. But apart from that, there's nothing I would complain about whatsoever. And when you're racing, you don't notice that play. So far we've done 500 on the pedals, 450 on the Playseat Trophy, 300 for the wheel, and 720 on the base. The reason I said 1 is because the Simucube 2 Pro normally costs RRP about £1,200 to £1,300 depending on where you buy it from. So we've made a good saving with the wheelbase. We've gone for a nice cheap wheel that doesn't compromise in quality. We've gone for top quality brakes and a very solid rig that fits into my room and into my space. Amazing. Now the next area to purchase was the monitor. You have to decide, do you want 3 monitors? Do you want 1 large TV? Do you want to go VR? Or my option, the super ultra wide monitor, which for me makes the most sense. With the space that I have and trying to keep it on a budget, this allows me to have over 100 Hz refresh rate. This monitor is 240, 1440p graphics or pixel density, and just 1 cable to power it. I don't have 3 different cables. I don't have variable mounts. I have 1 mount, and I managed to get this instead of again like £1,200. I picked this up used on Facebook for £600. So I have almost wraparound screens. Obviously, if someone's to my left or to my right fully, I can't see them. But unless you have triples, you're never going to be able to see that. Even in VR, you're very limited by your FOV. You can maybe get 100 degrees. At the minute, my FOV is set at about 115, 116 degrees in iRacing, so I see a lot of what's going on in front of me. And for the PC that I'm using, it works perfectly. So for the screen, I spent £600. And another benefit of going for 1 screen is you only need 1 monitor stand. Now that enabled me to go for the GT Omega ART stand, I believe is what it's called. That costs about £80 from Amazon or from GT Omega if you buy directly from them. It's not a fantastic mount by any means. It's not super high quality. It's not very adjustable. But for my purposes, it fits perfectly. And that's how I've managed to keep everything down on a budget and have a fantastic experience. I really feel wrapped into a car here when I'm racing. I forget about what's around me. Maybe I could add some, like horses have like the blinkers to block out my surroundings, and maybe I've seen some people with triple monitors, they put like a cover on top of the monitors so you don't see the ceiling. But with how close the screen is to my face, I don't feel like I feel like I'm in a car as opposed to sitting in my room. Now, that is pretty much everything. In terms of extra expenditures, there's a adapter for the wheel to the base, which was about £40. There is a wireless mouse, a keyboard, and obviously the laptop. Now, I'd probably classify that as additional extras in terms of a rig cost. Everything here, I'd say, is under £3,000 for sure. Maybe one extra cost to include is the haptic reactors. They're both... they're each £60, so when put together you get about £120, £150 expenditure when you include the power supply as well. Yeah, overall, I can't complain. Absolutely love the sim that I've got. I spent less than £3,000, and I don't really think I'm missing out on anything that someone might spend £6,000 or £7,000 on. I feel like this is fantastic value, and I'm so happy with what I've done. So yeah, cheers.